negotiating the surrender of actor Jussie Smollett.
Jussie Smollett charged with disorderly conduct, filing a false police report, a felony.
The national media was just too tempting for them not to jump to the conclusions that they did, and the result is that a lot of them today have egg all over their face.
After nearly 2 years, the Mueller probe may finally be coming to an end.
Should the Mueller report be released while you're abroad next week?
That'll be totally up to the new Attorney General.
The woman from Alabama who left to join ISIS and marry an Islamic State fighter will not be getting her wish to return to the United States.
The FBI's former top attorney wanted to charge Hillary Clinton.
He was basically given a binder with the classified emails, with documents. He was appalled. He didn't see any other way around it.
Former 60 Minutes correspondent journalist Lara Logan bravely stating what so many people already know.
If there are any journalists who are not beating the same drum and giving the same talking points, then we pay the price.
Here we go back. This is the moment.
This story, straight to a Fox News alert, Empire actor Jussie Smollett is now a suspect in the alleged hate crime against himself. He lied to cops.
The actor charged with filing a false report with Chicago police, which could send him to prison if he is found guilty.
All right, Matt Finn has been all over this. He has not been sleeping. He is there in Chicago where Smollett will face a judge, but he didn't show up yesterday, right, Matt?
No, last check with Chicago police late last night, he had not turned himself in. At this hour, no word yet that he has surrendered. His attorneys are aware of these charges. Right now, Jussie Smollett has to turn himself into police, be arrested, and then appear in bond court. Chicago police detectives testified. They presented evidence to a grand jury, and the attorneys for those two brothers, the Osundaro brothers, say they testified for 2.5 hours before the grand jury, before charges were approved. Police say the brothers were caught on surveillance in the area the night of the attack. CBS News reports they confessed to the alleged hoax, and new surveillance video apparently shows the brothers purchasing supplies, including black masks and red hats. The attorney for those two brothers say they do not have a plea deal, but would not expand on why the brothers got involved with the alleged scheme.
I think Jussie Smollett should come clear because the truth will set him free. I think that Jussie's conscience is probably not letting him sleep right now, so I think he should unload that conscience and just come out and tell the American people what actually happened.
Smollett's attorneys released a statement reading, quote, "Like any other citizen, Mr. Smollett enjoys the presumption of innocence, particularly when there has been an investigation like this one, where information, both true and false, has been repeatedly leaked. Given these circumstances, we intend to conduct a thorough investigation and to mount an aggressive defense." The attorney and Chicago police say right now there are no charges expected for the two Osundaro brothers. Brian, Ainsley, Steve.
That's interesting stuff. All right, Matt, thank you very much. So 1:30 this afternoon in Chicago, he will go before that judge for the bond hearing. Police, ultimately it comes down to he filed a false police report alleging he was a victim of a hate crime. Doesn't look like that's real. What is real, though, is he is lawyered up. He has now hired Mark Garagos to defend him in Chicago.
Against this Class 4 felony. The potential punishments for this felony disorderly conduct charge, imprisonment for 1 to 3 years, could also receive probation and up to $25,000 in fines.
Meanwhile, just to refresh your memory, if you don't follow Empire, or you didn't know who this guy was a couple of weeks ago, remember, what are you accused of happening to him? Remember what he said. Remember the potential, if this had been true, maybe even race riots in major cities across this country. Here's what he claimed to Good Morning America on Valentine's Day.
He said, "This MAGA country punches me right in the face." So I punched it back. I noticed the rope around my neck and I started screaming.
Why did you hesitate to call the police?
There's a level of pride there. As a gay man, you were considered somehow to be weak, and I'm not weak.
We're going to have William Kelly on the show coming up. He's a radio show host, and he's from Chicago, and he's furious. He said, all the crime that's happening there in Chicago, this is taking away the resources from the true crimes if this was a hoax.
And apparently, I heard Mark Furman last night on the channel say that there were 24 detectives working on this case, which is an extraordinarily large number. Some of the red flags to the cops, law enforcement found it weird that when they interviewed Jussie after the alleged attack, he kept wearing the rope the noose, they kept it around his neck for 42 minutes after the attack. He did. Also, they found it suspicious that when he took them where the alleged crime happened, he said, well, luckily, right behind me, right over there, and he pointed up at a surveillance camera. He said, luckily, that camera got it all on tape. And the cops looked at it, and they go, you know what, that's pointing the other direction. But the brothers did tell, apparently, the grand jury yesterday that they rehearsed it. They went through all sorts of things. Jussie scouted the location, and they rehearsed the attack, so they knew exactly where it would happen.
Meanwhile, Britt Hume sees this collection of incidents, whether it's the Covington kids with the MAGA hats on, whether it's a series of candidates who thirst to call the president a misogynist, a racist, a sexist on a daily, almost an hourly basis. And then this, obviously somebody who spent a great deal of his time campaigning against the president. He says, been very vociferous in my hatred for what he does and what he stands for. This is a scenario in which everybody wants one conclusion. Listen.
There's a real distinction to be made here between the way a lot of the local media out in Chicago handled this and the way the national media handled it. The local media in Chicago did pretty well on this story, and I think the reason was that to them it was a local crime story made into a big story by the fact that we had a celebrity as the alleged victim. The national media, I think, looked at this story and decided it was a Trump story, because in the national media, particularly in Washington, there's only one story all the time, and it's Donald Trump. And to most of them, it's Donald Trump and how awful and dangerous he is. So any story that, alleges that Trump supporters have, in the crudest and most bigoted way have assaulted somebody fits right into their view of Trump and of his supporters.
Well, Jussie Smollett is apparently his legal team is working out a surrender with the police. And of course, as we said, he'll be in front of a judge today at 1:30 Chicago time.
Meanwhile, on Mic Drop, it is a podcast hosted by an esteemed Navy SEAL who's been featured on 60 Minutes. Larry Logan spoke for 2 hours. But everyone's focused on what this outstanding reporter said about media in America today. There is no standard for journalists. There is only one source for journalists these days. People seem to put opinions when they're supposed to be reporting stories. And she says, I am committing career suicide when I say this. And that did not stop her from continuing that talk last night on our Prime Time with Sean.
That's right. She was blasting the mainstream media for the media's mob mentality. And she said she's tired of it. That's why she's speaking out. And it could hurt her career. She says it shouldn't. She said, Sean, you know firsthand, they'll come after you and they'll come after anyone who supports a Republican agenda, a conservative agenda. Listen to this.
If there are any independent voices out there, if there are any journalists who are not beating the same drum and giving the same talking points, then we pay the price. They can't take down the substance of what you're saying, right? They can't go after the things that matter. So they smear you personally. They go after your integrity. They go after your reputation as a person and as a professional, and they'll stop at nothing. So, I'm not the only one, and I'm just like, I'm done, right? I'm tired of it. And they don't get to write my story anymore. They don't get to speak for me. I want to say loudly and clearly to anybody who's listening, I am not owned. Nobody owns me.
And essentially what she's saying is, when she says they, she's talking about the 85% of the mainstream media that she says is liberal. 85% registered Democrats. And she said, any journalists who are not beating the same drum, giving the same talking points, we pay the price, she said. Meanwhile, let's talk politics. There's a family feud on the Democrat side.
Oh, gosh. Do you remember when Kamala Harris, she had that radio interview with Breakfast Club that was it was released. We talked about it. She admitted that she smoked pot. When they asked her if she was pro-legalizing marijuana, she said, of course I smoked marijuana. Half my family's from Jamaica. Are you kidding me? Well, her own father had a problem with that. But listen to what she said on the Breakfast Club.
They say you oppose legalizing weed.
That's not true.
I know.
and look, I joke about it, half joking. Half my family's from Jamaica. Are you kidding me?
You ever smoked?
I have.
Okay.
And I inhaled. I did inhale.
It's really hysterical for the former Attorney General of that state to talk about doing something illegal, laughing about it, giggling about it, and trying to get some traction for it. Among the people that were upset by it, her dad, Donald Harris from Jamaica, an economics professor at Stanford University, says this: "My dear departed grandmothers, as well as my deceased parents, must be turning in their grave right now to see their family's name, reputation, and proud Jamaican identity being connected in any way, jokingly or not, with the fraudulent stereotype of pot-smoking, joy-seeking, and in pursuit of identity politics." Man, what a blast. That his daughter who wants to be the next president.
No kidding. He added, and he had sent this statement to Jamaica Global Online. He said, "Speaking for myself and my immediate Jamaican family, we wish to categorically disassociate ourselves from this travesty." The campaign had no comment as of yesterday. It should be pointed out that Kamala Harris's parents divorced when she was younger, and her mother raised her and her sister.
But her father still had a big part of her life, according to reports.
Today she'll be with Al Sharpton in New York City, trying to do her best to get the African American vote. They'll be in Harlem at Sylvia's. So we'll see if she's going to comment on that, going in or out of that restaurant.
People are going to ask her, "Hey, what's the deal with your dad?" So stay tuned for that.
All right, let's hand it over to Jillian, who has some more headlines for us. Hi, Jillian.
That's our good Thursday morning to you. Let's begin with this. A Coast Guard lieutenant accused of plotting a mass domestic terror attack is due in court today. Prosecutors say Christopher Paul Hassan had a hit list of possible targets, including Democratic leaders and journalists. He also wanted to kill every last person on Earth. The self-proclaimed white nationalist stockpiling 15 firearms with more than 1,000 rounds of ammo in his basement in Maryland. House Democrats preparing to challenge President Trump's emergency declaration on the southern border. They plan to file a resolution tomorrow with a vote expected by mid-March. Even if it passes the Democratic-led House, it will still need to clear the Republican-controlled Senate to terminate the declaration. A Duke basketball player's shoe blows out less than a minute into a game. Watch this. Zion Williamson's foot tearing right through his Nike sneaker as he dribbled away from a UNC player. In a statement, Nike says, quote, "While this is an isolated occurrence, we are working to identify the issue." The Tar Heel beat top-ranked Duke 88-72. Williamson has a minor knee sprain. He's expected to be the #1 NBA draft pick, but I'm sure he'll be.
Yeah, that is not just a basketball player. That is a guy that's supposed to be maybe the next LeBron James. Yeah. And for him to get hurt in the first minute of the game, that could single-handedly tank Nike's stock.
Well,
I mean,
really?
for the shoe to blow out like that, and for his career to be in jeopardy, that's
terrible. The only way this would be worse, and I'm so sorry that he's injured, the way it would be worse if it were like the last point and they needed that as a tiebreaker, right?
But it's really not about the game. It's about this guy who will probably be one of the richest players in sports shortly.
And suddenly with the video of that shoe blowing up, you're right, Brian. Bad for Nike.
Yep.
They'll do some explaining later today as well. Meanwhile, 6:13 here in New York City, President Trump slamming Andrew McCabe after his media tour.
He really looks to me like sort of a poor man's J. Edgar Hoover. I think he's a disaster.
Well, now Missouri Senator Josh Hawley is ready to hold McCabe accountable, demanding answers. The senator joins us live next.
Plus, a police officer swept country star Miranda Lambert off her feet, and now he's being swept off foot patrol. We'll explain coming up.
I think Andrew McCabe has made a fool out of himself over the last couple of days, and he really looks to me like sort of a poor man's J. Edgar Hoover. I think he's a disaster.
President Trump blasting former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe, who detailed discussions of the ousting of the president during his book tour this past week. Our next guest is now demanding answers from the FBI on what he's calling a disturbing counterintelligence probe. Here to explain, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley, member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who just sent this letter to the FBI Director, Christopher Wray. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, so were you scratching your head when you heard Mr. McCabe on television talking about, yeah, we were all together, we were sitting there talking about who's in, who's out, who could possibly get rid of the president with the 25th Amendment? These were people at the DOJ and the FBI. The 25th Amendment does not provide for them to be the pickers on who goes.
You know, nor does the Constitution provide for them to be setting the national security or foreign policy of the United States, but yet that seems to be what they think they were doing. I mean, you have Andrew McCabe now admitting that he launched a counterintelligence investigation of the president because he didn't like the president's statements on foreign policy. I tell you what it really sounds like to me, Steve. It sounds like to me the FBI didn't want any oversight. The FBI didn't want to be held accountable. And when the president and others tried to do so, they retaliated against him. So I want to know. I want to hear from the FBI. I want to know who launched this counterintelligence investigation. I want to know why. I want to know who oversaw it. I want to know who was involved with it. And I want to know now.
Sure, absolutely. We all do. Now, it sounds like the Mueller probe, according to some news reports, could be drawing to a conclusion in the next week or two. Are you confident that the Inspector General at the Department of Justice, Michael Horowitz, Mr. Huber, who's been called in to take a look at the DOJ and the FBI, will be able to figure out who the bad actors were during this time?
Well, I hope that the Inspector General's investigation will go on. But look, there's a role here for Congress to exercise oversight. That these agencies, the FBI, needs to be held accountable. I don't want to go back to the day, Steve, when the FBI was collecting information on political leaders, the J. Edgar Hoover days, where they tried to influence the outcome of policy in this country.
Right.
I mean, that's not democracy. So we need to have oversight here. That's why I've demanded answers from the FBI, and I'm willing to take whatever steps are necessary to get those answers.
Right. And before you go, I know you are there in the Judiciary Committee. Have you heard whether or not the Mueller probe is wrapping up?
I have not heard directly. I look forward to it wrapping up. It should have been wrapped up a long time ago. The special counsel needs to bring his evidence forward, if he has any, and let's get on with it. The American people deserve to have this thing wrapped up and over with.
All right. I think a lot of people feel exactly the same way. From the great state of Missouri, Josh Hawley, thank you very much, Senator, for joining us live.
Thank you.
All right, 6:20 now here in New York City. Justice Smollett expected to face a judge at 1:30 Chicago time. Our next guest was a victim of violent crime and a Chicago native and says he owes everybody an apology to the city. And Billboard sending a clear message to AOC after she protested Amazon's HQ2 right in the heart of Times Square. Thanks for nothing, Alexander. Headline time on this February 21st. First up, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam has canceled his racial reconciliation event over student protests. The visit at the Virginia University Union, a historically black college, was the first stop on an apology tour after a racist photograph in his medical school yearbook surfaced. Northam tweeting, "He will respect the wishes of the student body." Meanwhile, Nike releases a special edition Colin Kaepernick jersey days after he settled agreements with the NFL. The Kaepernick icon jersey is $150. The former San Francisco 49ers player gained national attention in 2016 when he refused to stand for the national anthem to protest racism and police brutality. And that is some of the news, Brian and Ainsley.
Thank you.
All right, we got a Fox News alert. Today in Chicago, Jussie Smollett due in court. The Empire actor now officially indicted on felony charges for filing a false police report, and it could get worse from there. He's alleging a hate crime by Trump supporters.
Our next guest, a Chicago native and violent crime victim himself, says, "This is my city, and Jussie Smollett tried to destroy it," and is now demanding an apology for everyone in his city. Here with more is William Kelly, the host of the Citizen Kelly radio show. Good morning to you, William. Thanks for being on with us.
Thank you, Ainsley. I think I'm being told that this is the first time someone from Chicago has actually been on national TV to talk about Chicago. So we're making history, Ainsley.
All right. Well, get the story straight for us. Why do you want him to apologize to everyone in Chicago?
Well, this is very serious. I know that it's almost become a comedy of errors on the part of Jussie Smollett, which is why actors should never direct. That's the lesson here for actors, number one. But the fact of the matter is that the crime in Chicago was already epidemic. Okay, we had, I think 26 out of 30 murders go unsolved in the city of Chicago since Jussie perpetrated this hoax, allegedly, in my opinion, allegedly. We've had over 106 shootings, 26 murders, and guess how many arrests, Ainsley?
How many?
Six arrests, okay? The manpower of the Chicago Police Department has been completely misdirected towards solving this hoax, which has created a national firestorm against my city, okay? The city of Chicago, the city that I was born and raised in, that I love with all my heart, that I was raised to believe was the greatest city in the history of the world, okay? And whenever I travel now throughout the country, throughout the world, the first thing I hear from people is crime, murder, and now Jussie Smollett. We cannot let this go without an apology. Right. And, in my opinion, an arrest, a prosecution, and a punishment. This particular hate hoax has to be atoned for.
And the thing is, it's not about him. It's about others that could falsely do this and the ramifications. Now, you're a repeated victim of violent crime yourself. Now, just so when it comes to Jussie, this easily could have been a race riot. When you talk about they attacked me because I was black, they threw bleach on me, they attacked me because I was gay, this is MAGA country. You know, there's people who are already on the edge when they wake up in the morning. All they need is something to set them off.
Exactly right. First of all, the good news is that nobody in Chicago believed this hoax, okay? Because first of all, anyone who's ever been to Chicago knows this is not MAGA country. Despite all of my efforts on the Citizen Kelly radio show, we have not become MAGA country here in the city of Chicago quite yet. Okay, but the combination of first of all, this allegedly took place at 2 a.m. in the morning during a polar vortex, and bleach was allegedly poured over Jussie Smollett's head. Anyone who's been in Chicago for the last month knows that if any liquid was poured over your head, it would be frozen to your face for life, okay? I'm not a detective, but I do know that this hoax did not add up from the word go, not to mention the fact that anyone who's ever been raised in Chicago knows that the fact that nobody was shot during this alleged incident proves right there that this is a hoax.
He kept his Subway sandwich.
Exactly.
He kept his phone.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right, William, thank you so much for being on with us.
I'm a little concerned, though, about the Chicago police who actually exposed this hoax, because I'm afraid they might go down in history the way the Watergate, the night security guard at the Watergate Hotel is going to go down in history, because there's more to this hoax. We don't really know the motive, who else is involved, and I think that the Chicago Police Department may have exposed the Democrat, hate crime industrial complex.
Well, see, there might be an accomplice involved. We know that.
He's going to court today.
William Kelly, thanks.
Thank you, William.
Straight ahead, the U.S.-born ISIS bride fled to Syria to help ISIS kill Americans. Now she just wants to come home. Should she come home?
Do you think you deserve a punishment for what you did?
Maybe therapy lessons.
But will the law and the U.S. government let her back in America? And does she have a deductible that we should get her therapy?
Plus, Robert Mueller's Russia probe could be released as soon as next week, but the judge says that would be bad timing.
Why, Judge?
He explains why.
Why?
Top headlines this morning, starting with a Fox News alert. Empire actor Jussie Smollett charged with a felony for allegedly staging a hate crime attack. He's due in court for a bond hearing in Chicago this afternoon. Prosecutors say he filed a false police report claiming masked men put a noose around his neck, poured chemicals on him, and shouted, "This is MAGA country," in downtown Chicago, along with saying other racial and homophobic slurs. If convicted, Smollett could spend 3 years in prison. Next, special counsel Bob Mueller's probe expected to wrap up as early as next week. Sources telling Fox News that recent shakeups at the Justice Department are a sign the investigation is winding down. It's unclear if or when the report would be made public. That'll be up to Bill Barr. And finally, a brand new wave of migrants arrive at the Mexican border ready to cross into the U.S. They're now camped out near the same existing border fencing that potential 2020 presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke wants to destroy in El Paso, Texas.
Today, Roger Stone heads to court to address a threatening photo of a federal judge. President Trump's former advisor has apologized for posting the picture on Instagram showing Judge Amy Berman Jackson next to crosshairs of a gun. She's now considering whether or not to revoke his release or his limited gag order. Stone has pleaded not guilty to lying to Congress and witness tampering in the Russia probe. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez responds to a critical billboard with a clip from The Office. The giant Times Square sign reads, quote, Amazon pull out, thanks for nothing, AOC. The Job Creators Network group putting it up as the Democratic Socialist praises Amazon for canceling plans for a New York City headquarters. Ocasio-Cortez tweeting overnight that the sign is like a billionaire's version of this scene from The Office.
We have bubblegum shrimp, red lobster down there. You know, this is the heart of civilization right here.
Ocasio-Cortez trying to express that she thinks the Times Square sign is out of touch with real New Yorkers. The attorney representing the Covington Catholic students suing the Washington Post says the lawsuit is not just about money. Lynn Wood says Nicholas Sandmann's image is tarnished.
Think about what this young boy is having to deal with at age 16 when the entire world saw him the way the media portrayed him as literally the face of evil. It is inexcusable, reprehensible conduct by the media. And the Washington Post led the way.
Sandmann's $250 million lawsuit claims the Post published a series of false and defamatory stories because he was wearing a MAGA hat. The president tweeting, quote, go get them, Nick. Fake news.
Check this out. A rare snow-nado touches down in New Mexico. Look at this.
The funnel is spinning around, clouds, it's snowing, and it's... Oh my goodness. Ugh. It's just right across from my house.
Kind of hard to see. But...
Yeah, a rancher totally shocked, as you can tell by the weather phenomenon, and you can see the wind a little bit there, whipping up snow into the sky above a Navajo reservation. Janice Dean joins us now with what to expect around the country. I actually had a dream that there was a tornado outside my window last night.
That is a very rare occurrence. I'm sorry to hear that, Jillian. But you know what? To see a snow tornado, extraordinarily rare. Same dynamics as a water spout. Even, tornadoes, the same formation, the same dynamics. So incredibly rare. A very incredible sight. Let's take a look at the current temperatures. 9 in Minneapolis, 38 in Cincinnati, 33 in New York City. That storm system that brought the snow, the rain, the ice, the low is exiting the coast, but we still have this frontal boundary. Along this frontal boundary, we're going to see several more inches of rain. So flash flooding is going to be a concern from Louisiana up towards Kentucky. That will be a big story. Then our next big weather maker moves into the west. Why is this different? Because it's going to bring incredible snow across the southern Rockies. So we have winter storm warnings as far south as Tucson, Arizona. They could get 1 to 3 feet on the Mongolian Rim, the southern Rockies area, parts of Colorado. So this is a big deal to see this kind of snow this time of year for the southern Rockies and the Southwest. Then we're also going to see the potential for more snow for the upper Midwest and the northern plains. So bottom line is, winter is still here.
Yes, it is. Janice, actually, you and Ainsley were in my dream, and we did find shelter, and the tornado flattened the building above us, and we were safe underground. I know. I just remembered all this.
I need to get you a therapist.
I mean, we need to have drinks after this show.
You know what? I think we are.
I think we are.
Janice, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're not going to talk about dreams anymore on this show.
Just reminded me. All right, let's get into more important things like this. Chicago police now officially approving him for felony charges for filing a false police report.
Yeah, Jussie Smollett, the Empire star, sitting down for a tearful interview, claiming at one point his opposition to the president had made him a target for his MAGA hat, the president's MAGA hat supporters.
Why do you think you were targeted? I can just assume. I mean, I come really, really hard against 45. I come really, really hard against his administration.
So here's a question. Is it possible for Jussie Smollett to also face hate crime charges himself? Joining us now is expert insight is attorney Lisa Garber. Thanks for your time this morning. There's a lot to unravel here right now. We understand that he could be facing up to 3 years in jail as a result of all of this. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it looks like Jussie has taken the dramatics off the small screen and now into real life, unfortunately, and he's in a lot of trouble. And part of the issue is not only this felony charge of false
falsifying a police report. But down the line, we could see obstruction of justice charges. There are potential felony charges for wasting the Chicago Police Department's time. And then there's also the issue of the threatening letter that was sent. Did he mail it to himself that contained a mysterious white powder? So that could reach the federal level.
There's a whole slew of things that were done wrong here, if we have to say, if it does in fact turn out to be a fake claim that he made, which it's starting to appear that it was. Reasons for doing this. I mean, obviously, everybody knows his name now. And in the acting world, your Q rating is so important.
Definitely.
Why do you think he did it?
I think there are a couple different motivations that his spot. At the same time, one might think maybe he's trying to really promote causes close to his heart, racism, homophobia, things that he's dealt with most likely in his own personal life. But then at the same time, it looks like he's pretty anti-Trump, so that might be part of the issue as well.
I don't know. It just kind of seems to me like a cry for help, like there's something else going on.
Why would somebody create a hoax? Not only is it wasting time and money, but it's also it's really causing a huge distraction for victims that are suffering right now.
Yeah.
This is a sick move if true again. It would be a very sick thing to do. It's not the first time we've seen something like this against Trump supporters, though, right?
Definitely not. If you look back, there are hundreds of hate crime cases against Trump supporters. And you can look right now in the news with the Covington High School student who's facing so much backlash and bullying. And that is something that is so despicable because the 16-year-old's reputation is now tarnished for life. Even if he wins this court case, every time you search his name, you're going to see these charges affiliated with being a Trump supporter. The newspapers are really drawing a comparison, racism, homophobia, all of these behaviors. And so this is something that's gone back for years and years. And this smaller thing is just something else to add.
I think that the reason people are so angry right now about this whole thing is because of what this does for people going forward who actually experience hate crimes.
Exactly. And it's something that's really different for this administration. If you look back, there are hundreds of cases, different people trying to show this anti-Trump agenda. And it takes attention and time and money away from victims that are actually facing hate crimes. There are so many more real hate crimes and hoaxes, and he's done irreparable damage.
And there's a value in victimhood now. I mean, you become a celebrity in a lot of ways. You fire up the GoFundMe, you get $1 million. I mean, there's a real reason to make stuff up. And
exactly.
That's what's scary.
And hopefully he will face jail time if this is true, and it could ruin his career.
Yeah, he would have to be an example. Yeah.
Supposed to face the judge today. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
39 minutes after the hour, this is quite rich here. Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez campaigned on affordable housing.
Every day gets harder for working families like mine to get by. The rent gets higher. The affordable housing is not sufficient.
But now she's got a pretty big salary and moved into a luxury apartment complex that doesn't offer affordable apartments under D.C.'s affordable housing program.
And rejoice, it may be the dead of winter, but things are heating up because Victoria's Secret bathing suits are back. Don't go anywhere. Good Thursday morning and welcome back. A suspect opens fire on a deputy, turning a traffic stop into a deadly shootout. In dramatic body camera video that may be hard to watch, the newly released video shows suspect Javier Hernandez Morales firing a gun at Deputy Riley Jarecki before she fires back and kills him. The California deputy was not hurt. She's now on administrative leave.
Jeez, that is unreal. All right, 2 women busted at the border with drugs duct taped to their stomachs. Agents in Arizona say the American citizens had nearly a quarter pound of fentanyl on them, worth more than $50,000. They were both arrested and turned over to Homeland Security. Wow.
All right, a Fox Business Alert now. A major privacy group demanding answers from Google over a hidden microphone planted in one of its devices.
Tracy Carrasco from our sister network Fox Business here with more on a possible privacy invasion. Hey, Tracy.
Good morning. Yes, the Electronic Privacy Information Center sent a letter to the FTC demanding it take action against Google. This after Google admitted it made a mistake in not disclosing that its home alarm systems, the Nest Guard, have microphones in them. All of this came out out when there was a software update that Google said, hey, your Nest Guard is now voice activated. And many people said, well, I didn't even know it had a microphone. There were no indications of a microphone in the technical specifications. Google said that it wasn't meant to be a secret, that the microphone on Nest devices is turned off by default, only turned on when the user activates that voice-activated system. But a major issue, as you can see.
So, everyone, I'm very excited about this. Victoria's Secret bringing back its swimsuits.
Yes, the popular swim line. They got rid of it back in 2016 because they wanted to focus on the athleisure and lingerie. It's really popular. A lot of people liked it. So they announced they would be bringing it back. They tweeted about it earlier this week, and they have been posting pictures of the swimwear line on Instagram. So just in time for spring break, in time for summer, this will be available starting next month.
They are the best. They're the best.
Good price point.
Yeah, I'll just keep on kidding myself on this one.
Oh, you expressed it earlier.
Yes, I did. Tracy, thank you so much. I'll do it again. 45 minutes after the hour, Colin Kaepernick just settled his grievance with the NFL. They gave him a reported $80 million. Unreal. And now Nike is honoring him with a new icon jersey that a lot of people are talking about.
But first, let's check in with Brian Kilmeade to see what's coming up on Fox and Friends. I'm sure you're going to be talking about that too, Brian.
I think so, Jillian. Ultimately, you'll make that decision. The question is, how many other people get $80 million at least and not play football for the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And by the way, no one admitted guilt. It's just that he gets all that money. Unbelievable. Other things going to be talking about. The Mueller probe could be wrapping up as early as next week. I know what you're saying. Are you kidding me? Finally, it's almost been 2 years. We're going to discuss that, as well as some interesting things that are developing underneath. Why was Hillary Clinton not prosecuted? Joining us in studio, former Attorney General of the state turned Senator Josh Hawley will be here, and Judge Andrew Napolitano will be talking about the Jussie case and where he went, why he didn't show up yesterday, and what kind of trouble he will be in as the Empire actor finds himself looking at prison time. Dana Lash will be here, as well as Michelle Malkin, plus its heartwarming video going viral with more than 8 million views. You got an Army sergeant surprising his wife and newborn twins flying home to Kansas from Kuwait. They're alive, and they're going to be joining us for their very special reunion. Don't miss a minute, and I urge you, as a final public service announcement, watch the show fully dressed.
Thanks, Brian. We're coming right back.
All right, Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez campaigned on affordable housing during her successful 2018 run for Congress.
We need to start exploring housing as a right, housing as a basic commodity that we should all have. Every day gets harder for working families like mine to get by. The rent gets higher. The affordable housing is not sufficient.
Well, according to a new report, the champion for the working class is living in a new luxury apartment complex, despite her shouts against high-end real estate.
Joining us now to discuss, senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, Patricia Onwuka. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. After all she said during the campaign, to not live in a mixed-income housing building in D.C. seems incredibly hypocritical.
Yeah. Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez does not walk her talk, obviously. I mean, I get it. She's like the Jeffersons. She's moving on up. She's living in a complex that apparently $2,000 is the average cost for a single one-bedroom apartment. So very pricey neighborhood. And that's fine if you can afford it. But get off your sanctimonious high horse about the types of apartments that people should be living in and how it should be paid for. And the builders that build it. She, in fact, is feeding into the boom of luxury apartments because she's giving into these developers who are able to charge what they can. She's willing to pay that price.
And don't you think a lot of the public can read through that message here?
They absolutely can. I mean, it's one thing when you're out there campaigning on affordable housing, which is good. It's important that people can actually afford where they're staying. But it's another thing when you're not able to live up to those expectations. And the optics are really bad. Look at a lot of other members of Congress. What do? They're not living in the Navy Yard at a $2,000 apartment. They're living like a broke college student. Living with other members of Congress in a row house, almost like an alpha house, or maybe they're they're finding, maybe they're even sleeping in their own offices. And she, on the other hand, is demonstrating that she's not really fiscally responsible. But again, it's her money, it's her choice. She does, though, need to be realistic and not, practice what she preaches.
When you look at the idea of mixed income housing, where some people pay more so that other people can afford to live in their neighborhood, I mean, it is anti-gentrification. I mean, that idea of mixed income housing is everything that AOC is. And it's just incredible that she managed to find one of probably not that many buildings, a building in a neighborhood that's been getting lawsuits because of gentrification, and she chooses to live there. It blows your mind after all the things she said.
She's a millennial. She's young. This is an up-and-coming part of D.C. Very vibrant, lots of young people. And interestingly, I think Politico is reporting that there are lots of Trump administration staffers who live there. But I mean, she wants to be part of this young, vibrant environment. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But be sure that your message about affordable housing and demanding that it takes place in every city is consistent with what you're practicing yourself. Now, by the way, a lot of liberals, a lot of leftist politicians do this all the time. They say, send your kids to public school. We don't believe in voucher programs. We don't believe in school choice. But you ask them where they send their kids to, and it is an elite private school.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around. Patrice,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
We're coming right back. Nike releases a special edition Colin Kaepernick jersey days after he settles his grievance with the NFL. The Kaepernick icon jersey costs $150.
The former San Francisco 49ers quarterback gained national attention, of course, in 2016 when he refused to stand for the anthem, protesting racism and police brutality. A Nike spokeswoman saying, "We believe Colin Kaepernick is one of the most inspirational athletes of this generation who has leveraged the power of sport to help move the world forward."
And comments have been pouring in on social media. Jim on Facebook writes, "Buy Nike, bought my last product of that brand."
Instagram user says, "Since it's already out of stock, I'd say it was great for business."
And Kevin on Facebook posts, "It is not iconic, it is a disgrace." Time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. First up, the good. Pizza may be a healthier option than cereal for breakfast. According to a nutritionist, pizza has less sugar and more protein than most breakfast cereals, so it can satisfy your hunger longer.
That's true. Cereal does nothing for you.
Nothing.
Next, the bad. A college student accused of creating a drug-selling app disguised as a game. Investigators say Colin Howard sold cocaine and other drugs on an app called Banana Plug from his California home. Pretty clever.
And finally, the ugly. A reporter learns the hard way to stay far away from traffic in the snow. Watch this. That's not as good as Keely from Fox last year, though. Laura Parrott gets completely soaked by a passing snowplow in Virginia. Remember that one? Yeah. The video's funny. Google it.
We've all had that happen.
Yeah.
And here's your pizza for breakfast.
Yes. Enjoy, everyone. That looks like it's been through the ringer.
It's all right. See, pizza. I don't know if I believe that.
I don't either, but I'm not going to question
it. But the cheese has some protein in it. The cereal has a lot of sugar in it.
This is a study I've been waiting for my whole life. The pizza's
This is left over from Hannity last night.
I was going to say, we're doing some brainstorms right now.
3 a.m. pizza.
Congealed.